Welcome everybody to another episode of Push to Talk. We are here on the 5th of October, 2024.
How many 2020s in there?
Many 20s. There are many 20s in 2020, 2024.
Can I also please raise my official objection to going back to 2020? I don't want to live those years again.
No, I wholeheartedly understand where you're coming from there.
So
but yes.
what? So wait. What you're saying is it's 420 in 2020.
Oh wow!
Because you're saying it's 2020-24.
Yes, I guess there is 420s in that regard.
No, there are only 320s.
320s or 420s? I think Soth wanted 420s. Specifically
the 20th of April 2020.
Okay, now we're just making up dates just for the hell of it, and we've already tangented hard straight away at the start of the show. Like this is the
it's a core part of the show. Come on.
It seems to be ignoring the one true date format, which is year, month, day.
Yeah, but the Americans aren't.
Well, let's not get into that specifically, because we actually have like people on the show for once.
Yes. Let's talk about that.
Yes,
we do have a number of guests for today and next week.
Do you want to introduce them?
It is once again CSM season. So CSM 19. The candidates have been announced yesterday. There's a whole list. I'm just grabbing the dev blog to announce. I'm just trying to find the dev blog from yesterday so I can link it to Twitch chat. But yeah, we're going to be spending a couple of weeks talking to candidates who we think have an interesting platform or have a good foot in certain communities, kind of give people an idea.
Realistically respond to our request.
That too. But yeah, that whole bit of, trying to give people who aren't the established CSMers a bit of a chance to talk. I don't
know about you two, but I didn't shotgun a whole bunch of people and see who actually responded.
We didn't either.
Targeted.
We picked our people, but yeah.
Okay.
So in that spirit, we are in fact, even though Dawn is here today, suspending the Dawn rule today.
Yes.
In favor of chatting to Gideon Zendikar, Itaer and Komo Sunda.
Gideon obviously is from Desync.
I was going to kind of go down the list and let them introduce themselves rather than us talking too much.
That's fine. That's fine. Let's do that then.
So, Gideon, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Like many of us, I started my EVE career in Providence. I was a new pro, still flying in NRDS, so no red, don't shoot. And that whole ordeal was trying to make my way up there in Providence, moved into Legacy with the Victors, FC'd at a strategic level for that alliance and Legacy as the whole coalition. Moved then back to TRC during the World War B because I didn't want to be part of the big fights because I'm not really a big fan of tie-dye fights. I like the mid-scale skirmishes to small-scale skirmishes. I moved into Providence. We had our mid-scale to small-scale skirmishes in Providence. And then after that chapter, I moved into Farah and almost exclusively small gang PvP'd. And right now, we have an edge of a small deployment down in Omist as well with the Boss Alliance that many of you might have seen on the battle reports, linked in Reddit or similar stuff at the moment.
Very nice. Itaer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey guys, you're I think one of the first people to sort of say my name even vaguely correctly when they introduce me, which is kind of funny. I'm a sort of a historically low-sec, now wormhole, small gang PvPer.
Very nice.
Is that it?
I think that's the important part.
And
Okay,
you're from an alliance that has a difficult name to pronounce. But
Yes, you call us Barcode.
We refer to you as Barcode, yeah.
Yeah.
No, we refer to you as those idiots who can't type.
We call it I.
And okay, if Itaer's gonna just leave us with that,
Very, very.
Komo, do you wanna tell us a little bit about yourself?
I need to ask, are they I's or are they L's for barcode?
I believe some of them are I's and some of them are L's.
Oh, that's confusing.
It's getting tricky, you know.
That's like you saw the like the Providence. What was it? Providence had like a little tool to basically tell people whether they were hostile and should be shot or not.
Yeah,
and like
the cost
people
checker.
abuse the hell out of that. Almost feels like that's like a little kind of nod to that.
I'm pretty sure that some of them are spoiler tags as well, or like line breaks. So in Discord there would be spoiler tags. In fact, I'm gonna drop this into our mid-show messages for you guys. When we were doing our Alliance tournament, this is relevant-ish. We were doing our Alliance tournament. We were starting our opposition research because our first match in the main tournament is up against Barcode. This is what happened to our Discord thread for our opposition research thread.
Was it just like a bunch of Google searches that said we can't find anything?
No, they are no longer Barcode. They are now spoiler.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry. Come on, please.
It's okay. I'm enjoying this. So
yes.
So yeah, so I'm Komo Sunder. I am the retired executive of Chaos Theory Alliance and the CEO of Applied Anarchy. Now a member corporation in the initiative. It's funny. I actually started my nullsec life in Providence too. Left shortly after, and now very much so is on that kill on site list. So, but yeah, moved around quite a bit. Started Chaos Theory from out of SMA, where I learned how to FC.
I'm sorry about that.
Everybody has to start somewhere.
If you started out in SMA, how many times did I yell at you?
Yes,
quite a bit. Yeah, it was not uncommon. But yeah, moved around quite a bit. Formed Chaos Theory in this mindset of the strong independent alliance, and moved out and grabbed up some space in Fountain, and we were real successful at that going into the World War B Casino Wars, whatever you prefer to call it on this show. And got to build my story out of that. So, but now I'm here. I'm with the initiative. They've done a lot of good things. They've treated me really well in my corporation, and but now my stance is really to try to grow nullsec, right? Get it back to where it was, where there's space for that the new dreamer to come out and try to claw a piece of their land out. Gideon, you're playing that game right now out there in the southeast, right? Trying to find that content and create that create kind of that sphere out there.
Kind of not, right? Because for me, this is like, I know that if somebody comes knocking that is a lot bigger than us, then I will not try to fight them. I will just let them run it over. But I will just be as tenacious and make it as painful for them as possible. But there's also a reason why I'm running for CSM, and it's precisely because it's just now too easy to roll somebody over. It doesn't need a redeployment. It doesn't need any particular heavy lifting from logistics. We will go into this probably later on, but my main point, like last year, is still projection, because nothing has been addressed in that sphere, at least on a strategic plane.
We expect nothing less from you. Don't worry, Gideon.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, I'm currently in the southeast, but I still have to worry about if fraternity is coming in or not, and that's kind of ridiculous considering they're up in Vale of Sight.
When you're talking about transit times from places like Declan and Vale down into Immensea and other areas of the southeast, it can be a little bit crazy to think that, oh yeah, you go to Zarzak and then away you go. And I know CCP have patched that somewhat recently, but like there's still room to maneuver there, I think. But like you say, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later. But before we do that, we have brainstormed some bits of sort of key pieces of information that we think people out there might vote for you based upon. So I kind of figure we'll drop some of these questions in and out as we talk about some more Eve related stuff. But I'm gonna throw it out there with a really serious question here. What is your preferred level of doneness when ordering a steak?
Okay, medium.
Oh,
It has to be
rare,
medium rare.
Ooh,
Oh,
right.
I'm the guy in the middle.
rare for sure.
Okay, so
I think medium rare is a good kind of,
Yeah.
one.
right. So we got all the way from rare through to medium there. The good news for all of our listeners and everybody who might be interested in voting for you guys is that none of you will ruin a steak.
Which is good. Yeah.
We don't have to cancel anyone on this show.
It's nice of you to assume that all of us have the cooking skills to actually get it to the degree that we want to, because we can still ruin a steak even if we aim for medium, right?
I mean,
that sounds like a personal problem.
Yeah, that's very much a you problem rather than a general sort of steak.
I generally have no issues sorting out my own steaks, but then I lean towards the rare side of things. So,
oh well, thank you very much, there, Dirk, for starting with the most important questions. I thought, for example, I thought you were going to go with the I thought you were going to go with the Bloody Mary question. To be completely honest.
No. That's a very.
I was expecting that from you, to be completely honest.
That's a bit more of a complex topic. We might get onto it a little bit later. But no, gamers gaming games in Twitch chat notes as well that it does differ. I think he's right. If you do it at home, I will at least, and I'd like to hear from our CSM candidates as well. But like, if you do it at home, do you cook it less than you would order it out at a restaurant?
Oh, that's a good point, actually. That's a very good point. I suppose if I didn't know the restaurant, I probably wouldn't order rare.
It also depends on the quality of steak I'm buying in my personal space. Like if I just have it from the supermarket and it's just like packaged cheap meat, then probably I will cook it a little bit more, right? If I have it from a butcher that I know is not older than a day, that stuff
Meat
that he's
sauce.
selling, then the meat
See, this
sauce.
is a good point as well. Yeah. These guys,
Good quality
they
meat.
know their steaks. We are
Why?
happy with this.
Yeah.
I do want to point out that Itaer has to leave early. So how about we get to some
We should get into some
heavier
stuff.
topics?
some definitely some heavier topics. I think we should probably start with it.
No, this is exactly what I came here to talk about.
But I did want to say thank you very much to Komo for pimping Push to Talk on CCP stream earlier on today. Thank you very much for that.
we had to clear up the time window.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
Nobody knew when that was.
Yeah.
Very important.
Ariel pimped it earlier, but he was a bit unsure as to when we actually go live and for how long. So yeah. But thank you very much for clearing that up later on their stream. Anyway, yes. Some questions, some directed actual important questions regarding how you guys would perform on the CSM, right? We should probably do this a little bit more directed rather than just be like, send the question out onto the ether and then hope that one of you or all of you at the same time would pick it at the same time and try and talk at the same time. So let's start with something easy. Itaer, how would you approach getting CCP to take seriously the issues of your particular the issues that you have with your any particular playstyle or issues with the game that affect your playstyle or the playstyles of your voters or your demographic?
I think that's a great question for CSM in general, right? I mean, we've seen for years and years and years. I was here when the CSM was just an idea. And even, from the first CSM to now, we've heard all these candidates talk about the difficulty of having CCP recognize their input, right? I think it's been a huge point of frustration through the 19, 18 years of the CSM now. So I don't think that there is an easy answer to that. But I think when it comes to, the community that I want to represent, the small gamers, I think the best thing that I could do is show CCP some data, right? Show them like, hey, I polled people, or I have a lot of conversations here. Like, these are the things that are the most important. I think that if you come to people with just like a feeling like, hey, I think, you need to look into this, it's a lot less impactful than having anything constructive or, tangible to show them, right? So I want to spend time talking to people, maybe getting some data, some polls or votes, something like that, so that when I bring up an issue, I can say, hey, I could prove to you, right, that people really do care about this.
Yeah. And are there any techniques or methods that you would go about sort of making sure that the information that you're getting from, say, other people or from, your own research as such, isn't in any way biased one way or the other?
Well, we'll of course be biased because I'm representing a certain community. But I think that if you're talking about avoiding anyone injecting their sort of agenda in there,
yeah,
I think especially for like the small game community and more niche community like that, it's more just about having been around people, right? Knowing people, knowing what has been a pain point for years and what people care about, and just having been involved for a long time.
Cool. All right. Same question to Gideon.
I think you have to build broad consensus among the CSM and then push an issue if it's a personal pet peeve of yours. And you have to make them, I think it's easier to make them realize that that might be an issue. And then if you have a unified voice between those members and peer groups, then you're probably more successful addressing maybe one dev that is that you have a personal connection with over the period of the CSM, or you have somebody that you can easily approach. And then if you have a unified voice between CSM members and then you're approaching that CCP developer, then I assume you will have the most chance of success. That would be one avenue of doing it, just through representatives and getting them to a consensus on a certain issue. And I think another way that I've done it already in the past is, I'm gonna link it in chat right now.
If it's actually a web link, we can get it. That's fine.
I put it into mid-show.
Yeah, it's all good.
This is a post that I made about 2 years ago. This is a Reddit post that I approached other FCs, so people that FC other people among all alliances. If you check down the list, there are people like Pandolorica, who's currently doing more NPSI stuff. You have Nereus, who's the fraternity leader. You have people in Snuffed Out, which are currently low sec. All the way down to small gang people, including myself, or let's take Phantomite, who was at that point in faction warfare, or people that do Podgman stuff. So I approached people in all parts of space with a certain issue. I accumulated points why that thing is an issue, and then I tried to make them co-sign that post. And if you look at that post, I had an open-ended solution to the problem. I just pointed out what the actual problem is, and then I can provide feedback what I think is a solution to the problem. But a CCP in the end has to develop it, because we don't want to push. If a player pushes CCP to do something, that's probably not going to work. First of all, and second of all, we probably don't want that, because we don't want players to have the power in the game, because they will if that would actually work, they would just game the system for their advantage. So building broad consensus, either among players that already have a lot of weight within the community, like that community of FCs, or you go over the representatives of CSM. I think building those consensus is probably the best way forward.
Okay.
Worth noting that 2 of the names on your list of FCs who signed up to this Reddit thread do now work for CCP, although one of them is not necessarily working directly on EVE Online as we know it. So yeah, just an interesting little
note
there.
Pretty cool. I lost my train. I lost my train.
Onto Komo to answer the same question.
Yes, Komo.
I've been sitting here patiently.
Yeah,
right?
Thank you.
Well, everybody that has their hat or their name in the hat for CCP or for CSM 19, right? We all have a common denominator. We all want to see a betterment of EVE Online, right? We want to see it grow. We want to see it better. So there's going to be some connection there between all of us. Now, I don't know everything, right? I think I have a pretty good grasp on 0.0 and how to expand that to a newer player base. But the fact is, we need to sit down and collaborate. Right, we need to work with each other, and I think I'm just echoing what I just heard. But you have to sit down and build a coalition within the CSM on those points and those areas that you feel can improve, and you really do have to have that data to back it up. Right, you need to sit down. You have to get the feedback from those individuals that are directly affected by those changes before you can just throw it at the wall. Right. Everybody has great ideas, or at least they think they have great ideas. I think I have fantastic ideas. But without directly working with those on the other side of EVE, right? What is that? That's just an idea, right? You don't have a lot of solid base to it. So it's very important to give an opportunity for the player base in EVE to be able to reach out to you and have some transparency and interaction with them to bring that forward to the other leaders that are elected onto the CSM and then onto CCP itself.
Okay, cool. Sort of follow-up question to you, Komo, but also we'll go back around to everyone else with the same sort of question. But taking into account, like, getting a consensus with the rest of the CSM, like if you were on the CSM, for example, with CSM 19, there's always a kind of a difficult kind of aspect of, the CSM basically saying that this is a problem for the game. But if CCP is not actively or sort of have any plans with touching that area of the game in any way, shape, or form, how would you go about basically explaining it to CCP that this aspect of that needs to be changed is actually important in any particular way, shape, or form? Like, what technique, what method would you kind of go about trying to actually convince them that some niche aspect of that needs to be changed is actually really important for the rest of the game?
Well, what is the base? What's the idea of any game that's released, right? You want to build a player base. You need to build build that community. And a lot of the issues that we see in EVE today can be outlined by how many players are actually engaging in that area. Right. If it's not a whole lot, and that's a focus point for EVE Online, it's something that they advertise as important to them, right? And there's not as many people involved in it as there probably should be. That's a pretty good indicator, right? Like if you look at 0.0, right? We've seen a huge shift from nullsec. We're talking NPC null. We're talking SOV null away from nullsec because there's really not a lot of advantage there. Yeah, the money's not there, and I'm not talking about the period of proliferation of capitals in nullsec. I don't think anybody wants to see that again. But the same idea of scarcity, it's not great, right? So you can go back and look at what happened when we instituted scarcity. Well, people started leaving null because they didn't have a reason to live there anymore, which is okay for lowsec, but those people that really enjoyed that format, a lot of them just walked away from the game, and that's bad for all of us. It's bad for us. That's bad for CCP. That's those that live in high sec never want to touch nullsec. Any drop in the player base is not great. So that's the target. That's what you would need to focus on and build that argument around. Right? It is subscribers to the game. Right? If we're seeing subscribers in the game not focused on this area, right, or not engaging in this area, I think that's an area of improvement.
Cool.
So there's a kind of a little bit of a follow up there, because you say
hang on. Like let's let Gideon and
let me give you a follow up before we move
right.
around.
Okay.
Because you say that nobody really wants to see the Rockwall era, the era of plenty, again. But I would actually contend that there's rather a lot of people out there who quite liked seeing dreads on dreads happening every weekend, and that reliable ability to throw ships at the wall without worrying about the cost of the loss. So, in that vein, where would you find the balance point? Where would you contend is the balance point between people having ships freely available enough to have regular fun and not worry about those capitals as a strategic asset so much, and this current era of scarcity in which every single capital that moves is some sort of level of strategic asset, and we have far fewer of these big fights as a result? Where's the balance point for you?
Where's the balance point? So, number one, that's a relatively narrow perspective, right? So, who really benefited from the proliferation of capitals, right? You had the large blocks. That's who could throw these capitals on grid and have these massive capital fights. The little dudes that are living off of Scalding Pass or Wicked Creek, right? That constantly have whaling fleets looking for rogue walls that can't be defended by their alliance. They didn't have that same luxury, right? So they weren't able to just pump out capitals. They were reliant on purchasing capital from more people that use that IS to buy more capitals themselves or build more capitals. There's a sliding scale. Like right now is not great. I think we can all agree with that. Nullsec isn't fantastic when it comes to the industry unless you live in the core of Horde space, or you live in Delve, or you live in Vale or Fountain, right? You just aren't able to pump out the numbers that you need to enjoy that level of gameplay. And the N+1 is very real. We're never going to overcome that. But there should be measures in place that allow those groups that are jumping into null and want to participate in those things to be able to participate in those things. Realistically, the problem with proliferation, it was not a nullsec problem. It was a workflow problem, right? You would have the locust fleets just eat everything in nullsec, and now we had all of these resources. We don't know what else to do with them. We're going to pump them into capitals. Yes, we're going to go jump capitals on top of each other and have these massive tie-dye fights that everybody enjoys. It's not a bad thing. We want those to happen, but in moderation, right?
All right, thank you.
Cool. Gideon, how would you approach? How would you get CCP to sort of take seriously something that they may not be taking seriously enough?
Yeah, like I said earlier, just before that, I already stated that building consensus, trying to get the data, getting the heavyweight players that are part of that community that actually know what they're talking about, and trying to get them to find a unified voice, or at least address the same problem and not necessarily give a solution, but just say, hey, here's a problem, look at this, please. And that's probably the most successful way to get CCP to work on something.
Okay. Sweet.
But I would like to ask Komo a question, because he just stated something.
Okay.
What do you think is currently hindering small alliances taking stuff in nullsec? What is the biggest issue at the moment?
I think you're going to like my answer, but it's the oppression of blocks, right? The fact that a fleet can form an MJ and be an OMIST within 20 minutes is a problem, right? You don't really see large blocks fully deploying anymore, right? You see it on occasion, especially if you see a friction between blocks. But if somebody's going to roll into a region that's on the other side of Eve, that should be more than just a minor inconvenience, right? That there should be an undertaking behind that, some planning before we go into that, right? And a lot of that's jump bridges, right? I support your position on the Ansiblex. I think that the force projection in Eve is not just capitals. Force projection comes from the 500-man subcapital fleet that can jump through 4 or 5 regions in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. I think that's really problematic.
Cool. Itaer, sort of question like the same sort of question that was posed to Gideon and to Komo. How would you go about getting CCP to recognize an aspect of the game that they may not be recognizing as important needs change in some way?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all saying very similar things here. You have to, if you want CCP to take anything seriously, I think the only hope the CSM has is to come together and say, hey, this is an issue, to bring data, like I said. But I really like what Gideon said, and I agree with it. I don't think that it is effective to bring CCP as solution, right? Because I think a very commonly misunderstood part of the CSM is that the CSM is not a game developer position, right? As much as many of us would like it to be, as much as I would like it to be, right? A lot of people here have really good ideas and are really knowledgeable about the game, but that's not what this is about, right? The CSM are there to advise CCP on changes. They're not there to say, hey, add this to the game, hey, make this change, whatever. And in what capacity they try to do that, I think it's largely been unsuccessful. So I think that the most important or impactful thing that the CSM can do is raise CCP's attention to a problem, and then we do have to trust them to bring a solution to that. And maybe you can give feedback on the proposed solution and maybe disagree with it. But I think that CCP does tend to ignore the CSM when they say, "Hey, go make this change." They say, "Yeah, well, we'll think about it." Right? So I think, the most impactful thing you can do is to bring up and as a united front say, "Hey, this is a problem. You need to look into this. You need to address this."
Excellent. Cool.
All right. So we said we were going to do a couple of more key questions for your voters, along with some serious conversation about the state of the game and what you kind of think needs to move forward. So this question comes in two parts, and the first part is more key than the second. Soth's going to like the first part, especially. What is the best type of cake? And two, if you could bring back any mechanic that no longer is a part of EVE as it exists today, what would it be and why? So we'll start with Itaer, because I know he's got to he's on a bit more of a clock than the rest of the guys. But yeah, what is the best type of cake? And then if you could bring back any function from EVE that doesn't exist currently, what would it be and why?
I mean, I think I really prefer pie to cake. Like a nice apple pie is really something special. But if you're gonna force me to choose a cake, a chocolate cake, classic, rich, moist chocolate cake is the way I'm gonna have to go.
Soth likes.
And if I had to choose a mechanic to bring back, it would be combat refitting, which of course is quite contentious and has a lot of balance problems associated with it. But it was also really, really enjoyable in-depth gameplay that added a lot to the game, and I miss it every day.
Nice. That's actually a really nice choice. I like that.
I miss the sort of like the Pantheon.
He means the chocolate
sort of
cake, not the mechanic.
Oh right, yeah.
I mean both, but I don't miss cake generally, Soth. You know that about me, but
Soth was missing chocolate cake when we were in Prague. He was like, "Oh God."
Oh yes.
But yeah, no, combat refitting is a really good choice in terms of like stuff that gave you a lot of options, but you had to.
I mean, I was there. Well. I was doing the triage carriers, the Pantheon carriers, stuff like that in 2012, 2013.
Back in the day when Rooks and Kings were like doing their
well,
thing.
The Mercurials are what got it removed, I think, really. But
yeah, we kind of pushed it a bit far with those.
Yeah, we may have overdone it with that one. I'm not gonna.
What you mean? You don't like 1,000 Mercurials in the same system having a big fight?
No, I think what pushed it over was
the Slowcats.
The argument of RT or AC finally being settled as both.
With both, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that, if you add this as like and again, I'm not a game designer, right? So I don't claim to have perfect answers for anything, but it would be really cool to say, have this as a role bondage on Force Auxiliaries, right? Like how game breaking would that be? Surely not really.
Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome.
Okay, cool.
Very good answers there. All right, let's kind of go back round a little bit, because Komo seems to be coming last a little bit in his answers sometimes. So, Komo,
it's okay. I'm patient.
preferred. What's the best type of cake? And if you could bring back a mechanic from Eve that doesn't exist currently, what would it be and why?
Oh wow! So it has to be red velvet. If I don't say that, my wife will kill me. And that would be bad. Best mechanic, guys. I really miss the world of Ishtar's Online. Don't you? No, I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I was about to be like, what the fuck?
About to get kicked from the Discord, guys. It's okay. No. You know what I really miss? I really miss. I miss station games. I miss station games out in Sov. Right? You don't get that with Citadels anymore. You don't get that. You don't get that play, or when you had that brief moment in Eve history where you could entosis structure modules. Yeah, services on the structures.
Oh, yeah.
To provoke a fight. I mean, that was a lot of fun.
You suddenly have no cloning bay.
Yeah.
How many players in Eve now who play in nullsec have never had the experience of, oh my god, where did my cloning bay go?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of players that had that experience because somebody ripped it out of the Keepster. But it just shows how powerful Keepsters are.
Oh yeah, well that is in itself another serious kind of issue. Just having cloning services ripped entirely out, just on a whim by one click is a bit much. But yeah.
But yeah, no, that's actually another really good choice. God, you guys are knocking it out of the park. All right, so moving on to Gideon with no pressure, buddy. Best type of cake going, and then mechanic in Eve that doesn't exist now, that used to exist, that you'd like to see back. What is it and why?
As a German, I have to say Black Forest cake. I like that. And
Stuff, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And what I would like to see back is like a siphon mechanic or something similar to this. This was even before my Eve times, but every time I heard it, I was like, why is this not in the game? Like a mechanic where you can, even if there is a passive resource as an active player, you can deploy stuff in a system to maybe get a share of that passive income.
I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to say
that. You're talking about like the old POS style siphons that you'd put on a moon goo mining tower, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily mean POSes. I mean like a type of mechanic that is similar to this, where there is a passive income source and you can do something active to tap into that passive income source if somebody doesn't react to you.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say that I'm just going to put it out there that particular mechanic sucks.
It does.
It very much does, literally.
The concept of it.
Yes. Yeah, we kind of
not that particular mechanic because POSes are weird.
Yeah, because now that we have Metanox moon drills that are passive income sources, you do kind of need to have that sort of kind of counterplay that isn't just bring a whole bunch of dudes and knock it down till it's reinforced, right? Like you do need that additional thing.
We had an active thing that you could do to actually knock them down, which is stealing the gas, but CCP doesn't actually agree with having strategic resources, it seems, because the last Skyhook update is something that I just do not get from any perspective. As somebody who is currently deployed in nullsec and as somebody who was stealing the stuff, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, so going around the room then, let's do a quick snap poll. Gideon said that was too far. This latest Skyhook change, not cool. Komo, opinion on the latest Skyhook change?
Bring Skyhook content back. It was great to defend. It was great to attack. And overnight, you could see a difference in that pilot and pilot interaction in nullsec. It just went away. That was one of the best things that came out of Equinox, and the rollback was really, really bad.
Okay, and Itaer?
Yeah, way too far. It was one of the biggest sources of content for my corp. Like I was small gamers, right? Go into a space, ping the Skyhook, get an awesome fight. It was great. But I mentioned this in my thread. My biggest problem with this change, other than the mechanics itself, is that they just barely told us why, right? So if they come up and say, hey, we really intended Skyhooks to be like a medium to large gang fight. We want the thefts to be rare but super meaningful. Therefore, we're making these changes. then we're no longer arguing with numbers anymore. We're saying, hey, well, there clearly was an appetite for some sort of small gang raiding content. So if you insist that Skyhook should be more, rare and meaningful, give us something else, right? Like clearly the players are really interested in having that thing, but without any sort of real rationalization. And the blog uses this ridiculously vague language. Without any sort of actual communication, how do we argue these changes, right? Other than just saying, well, it sucks. Well, yeah,
I actually did argue why they
reason.
wanted the changes. They wanted the guy that the owners of the Skyhooks should have more of a stake with how the raiders work, and they claimed that it would be too easy to steal them. They named that specifically in the patch notes, that they didn't like the imbalance that they perceived between raiders and owners. They wanted
I read the patch notes, but that's what they said. They said to address the imbalance. What imbalance? They didn't talk about it, right? They say to make them more attractive. Why do they have to be more attractive? Is adoption low? Are there not enough regions in the economy?
And this
is not a conversation, it's platitude.
Yeah, but that is what they claim is the problem, and I disagree with their analysis of the problem already.
The problem was that it was better for you as an owner to raid your own Skyhook.
Yeah.
So the solution is to make it easier to raid if you're on the UCL. I mean, it's insanity.
I think the
I'm
worst
not saying
part,
the solution is good, okay?
here's the thing. If we wouldn't call it stealing, and they would have named it something different from the beginning, like collecting, people wouldn't be as opposed to the idea of the original Skyhook. Because here's the problem. I think the framing is already wrong. If somebody would have told anybody that you can deploy Skyhooks that cost between 800 and 600 million at the moment, you deploy them in your space, and they generate enough income just passively and collected inside of them within a day. They earn like 300 million at the beginning. So you can make it back. If you just hold it for 3 days and you collect it for 3 days, you have your Skyhook paid back. If you would frame it like that, and you wouldn't call it stealing from the beginning, is there anybody who wouldn't deploy these structures? You get 300 million a day for 10 minutes stealing it, and it costs 900 million. Who wouldn't deploy the structure?
Okay, so there's a couple of bits in Twitch chat that I think we should address as part of this conversation. First up was Ancient Stephanie saying, I feel like the latest Skyhook update was in the right direction, but way too far in that direction.
Dirk, before you go there, Itaer has to head out, so thank you for joining us, Itaer. I hope you get lots of votes, because I always like to see new people on the CSM. New
diversity.
people.
Yeah.
Yes, diversity is always good, and especially in the small gang space, it is rare to see people get on the CSM. And
yeah, thank you for coming, and good luck.
Bring those voices there.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it, guys. Have a great day.
No worries. All right.
So yeah, coming back to the comments in Twitch chat, Ancient Stephanie feels like the Skyhook update was in the right direction, but too far in that direction. And then Symbiotes, I'm gonna, I can't not read this one. Solo Squall stealing core resources for us is bullshit. In that sense of the argument, where the mechanics incentivized you to raid your own Skyhook instead of having a reliable income from it, do you think that there would be a compromise point somewhere between the previous you can raid the Skyhook at any point for any amount and the current very restrictive Skyhook raiding times and also restricted Skyhook raiding amounts?
I think
have they flip-flopped here? Is the question, really.
I think there was nothing wrong with the original implementation, and people just need to take a step back, I think, and look at the whole picture. Even if all the raiders in all the games would steal all the magnetic gas that is in Skyhooks before that, in the end, what can a small gang group do with that magnetic gas? There's nothing you can do with it except stick it into metanoxes or get it into resources in nullsec itself. So and not everything is gonna get stolen, right? But even if everything would be stolen, in the end, nullsec would win even with that, because they are the ones that are driving the market, and they are the ones buying the gas for their metanoxes. So even under the assumption that everything would be stolen, nullsec even would gain from Skyhooks in the old implementation. And what did Skyhooks provide in the old implementation? If you went into an empty pocket of space and maybe your filament took you there, or your wormhole connection currently is not the best for content, there at least was something that you could poke, and then the locals would have to respond to you. Even if there's not the highest density, if somebody sees it through NCplexes or other protection tools, they can come to you for 10 minutes. That is a long time. And it is not even just locals that could respond to you. Very often it happened to us. Somebody stole something, and it wasn't the locals that responded, but they saw the ping and there was another small gang group. They saw us stealing it, so they engaged small gang against small gang. So it wasn't only just a content tool for locals against small gangs, it was small gangs against small gangs against locals, and sometimes it even escalated. We started something, the locals responded, another small gangs group saw the locals responding, we teamed up and fought the locals then together, the big fleet of the locals. So it was just an ad hoc point of content that everybody had an income from, even if everything would have been stolen. Because the only way to use the magmatic gas is using it in metanoxes, which are only in lowsec or in nullsec. And you already need to be part of a block to actually use metanoxes. It's very unlikely you can use them as a small entity.
I agree with that to a point. Right, I think there is somewhere on the scale that you could land, and it's not around the magmatic gas, right? That everybody focuses on the magmatic gas because that's where the money is, right? That's where the expensive stuff was. If you went raiding Skyhooks, that's what you were targeting for the most part. But if you go back and you look at the ice planets, that's what alliances really needed, right, to run their SOV upgrades or the strategic upgrades. That was the most important piece. So if you were completely oppressing an alliance and taking everything all the time from that group, yes, they're not going to put up antiplexes. They won't have the ability to put up Sino jammers. They're definitely not going to be able to do super capital construction. So I can see there being a scale. I like the idea of a reserve that came through with the last iteration. I think there's a place for that where some of it gets stolen and then some of it gets put in the reserve, and the locals they can harvest that piece.
But you address something here. You specifically point to ice planets being the strategic resource. We rarely stole those because the ISK value that they produce within a day is far lower than what the magmatic gas is producing, ISK value wise. So people rarely raided the ice planets because they were the strategic resource and people were not yet willing to pay as much for them. And the only reason why small gang groups go to a Skyhook is making money. So if you don't make money from ice planets, nobody stole them. So I think there was a nice balance there before, right, as well, right? Because the strategic resource is ice. It's very unlikely anybody's stealing it. And if somebody is stealing it, he's not stealing it to make money. He's stealing it to hurt you in a strategic way. So he's attacking a strategic resource while taking a loss for it, because he could just steal gas at the same time. So I don't think there's something bad about having strategic resources within the game that somebody could attack.
Yeah, no, I mean, I in a lot of ways, I agree with you. In most ways, I agree with you. I just see that there is a balance there. I see that I see a component, and I don't even know if 50-50 is where we should sit. Maybe reserve 20% of it, right? So small groups can continue to maintain and run their SOV.
This is something that I've actually agreed with in my personal team speaks. Like if there would be a share because you want the SOV owner to always have a benefit from having a Skyhook, like a 10-20% share should already be enough to pay for the Skyhooks very, very fast. But there are some other adjacent things with the Skyhooks changes that probably are overlooked. Somebody in chat earlier said, for example, that I should come into the vulnerability window and just take it right now in the new system. I take you up on that challenge. Just go to the colony resource tab in the agency, go to all regionals, and check how many Skyhooks are actually vulnerable right now.
Well, I literally have that up on a thing, so that's why I can actually check out.
It's a bit embarrassing.
I'll show you.
Okay.
This is the map as it is at this particular point in time. Showing what vulnerable Skyhooks are available, and there is one up like in decline right now, and there's two down in Featherbolus right now. Like that is it. I mean,
yeah, I see. I see 4 less vulnerable skyhooks across the entirety of the game, right?
Yeah, you can just open the agency tab and filter for vulnerable ones.
But like it, just as a representation, there is clearly not that many going on. But you know, to be completely fair, not all of nullsec is fully converted into sort of using skyhooks at this point in time. So there is that.
They pretty much are.
But
I would say enough are.
There should be much more available now.
Yeah, I am amazed that so many groups haven't yet fully deployed their skyhooks. Like I stated earlier, they make so much income. They are paying for themselves within maximum 2 weeks at the current rates. But that is more a management problem. It's not a problem of mechanics, right? Let's say we add 30% more skyhooks. Congratulations, you have 1 more rateable skyhook in this current point in time. So in the whole of nullsec, 3,500 systems, there are 4 to 5 skyhooks rateable at any point in time. This is not gonna lead to small gang ad hoc content if you come out of a random wormhole, because the likelihood that something within 10 jumps is rateable is very, very low.
And I mean, have you logged in the last week? Right? Have you logged in the last week? Right? Have you seen the pings? Right? It went from almost consistent. Right? If you're anywhere in space that people live in, you're seeing these pings pop up, and now it's nothing. Right? You sit around twiddling your thumbs, waiting for. I mean, in Fountain, we sit there and wait. We were waiting for people because we wanted to go in and play that game with them. Right? With like 7 or 8 dudes. That was a blast. Nothing. Yeah, I mean, it's ghost town.
And I want to point out there that Komo, you guys were the defenders at that point.
Yeah, and
we did a lot of the defending piece, and that was, I mean, it was just as much fun. If you had people wearing a skyhook, you knew that, hey, there's a gang here, and we can go in and play the game, right? Instead of just spinning spaceships.
Symbiotis in chat said, because he's addressing that I'm a small gang PvP player, you kind of seem to be mistaken what I'm currently doing. I'm currently in a soft campaign in Omist. I set up the infrastructure down there myself. I know the costs exactly, so I can tell you how much something costs and how much time it needs to repay itself. It's not that expensive to currently set up the infrastructure, considering how much passive income you're making. It repays for itself in a very short amount of time. Okay. So using that as a point to say against me that I'm only small gang PvPing. No, I actually set up infrastructure. I use the infrastructure, and I know it from all kinds of situations. So and from all kinds of perspective, it's just not true.
And again, Komo actually agrees, and he's definitely not small gang.
Exactly. Yeah, like from my sort of perspective, I do think that the changes to skyhooks were like, it kind of felt like almost the right hand didn't know what the left hand was doing, kind of thing. Like you had the inclusion of the the sort of like protected resources, and then you also had this massive reduction in the amount in the sort of vulnerability of those particular skyhooks, and it was just like that combination is just way too much. I mean, the vulnerability window being and changing like to be only 1 hour every 3 days was just like absurdly too much anyway. Like with before you even kind of look into the sort of the amount of resources that are actually available for people to steal.
Yeah, like if people want a 10 to 20% secure cut, that especially for smaller alliances always gives them a small cut, because they're most likely going to be roamed a lot more than the big blocks in the main systems. I don't think that would be an issue. I think the vulnerability window just needs to be gone, and that secure, and just limit the secure container to be a smaller cut, and that will be enough to run all of the strategic infrastructure currently. The only thing that you might not be able to run is probably your meta noxes, but then you have to defend your income by actually engaging with PvP. Or if you cannot do that, then just buy the magmatic gas from the market if somebody stole it and put it into the meta noxes that are worth it. And then even as a small entity, because you have less players to supply, you will still make a decent cut of that income.
I mean, people, raiders coming in could always, take the stuff that they steal and actually ransom it back to the same group. Like, you can quite easily just
in a way
find
they're
an
doing it just
Athanor.
over the market, right?
Yeah, but like
in a way,
you could easily just like throw it into an Athanor and then sort of have it basically get pushed to the closest low-tech station and then sell it there.
No, the fact is, it's still in the game, right? We're not eliminating it. It's still there to be used. It's just how do you access it?
Anyway, I think we've talked about Metanoxus and those things long enough. I think it was Itaer who said that being on the CSM can be very what did he call it? Frustrating. How do you think you will deal with that if you get on the CSM?
Do you mean in
running
terms
your
of like
head into a wall,
belligerent
for
sort
days?
of opinions, that kind of thing, right?
So
I mean, sorry, go ahead, Gideon. Go ahead.
okay, I linked the draft where I had all FC's co-sign. That took me 1 to 2 weeks to completely get the voices from all parts of space and try to get a small comment from them and synthesize that into a unified opinion. I can be obnoxious if I think something is an issue, and I will keep being obnoxious in that sense. And I will try to push for it as long as I can. And all I can show is the past track record where I have been very, very determined to actually bring issue to a close. Like you stated earlier, you already said that as a joke when I came onto the show that Ansiplexus is probably going to be something that I'm going to be talking about. How did you know that? Because I've been talking about this for a longer period of time. And as seen here on this panel...
I was tipped off by a CSM member, ex-CSM member.
Yeah. And as we have seen on this panel, I think there's a large agreement that the current projection is destroying medium-sized alliances, like Komo stated earlier. This has been an issue for him, and he sees it as the main issue currently, keeping away medium-sized alliances from taking space. And here's the thing, right? We just poked into this Skyhawk's Metanoxus. There's actually an incentive to taking your own part of space right now, because there's an active passive income source that you could claim as your own and you could completely get as your own. If a small group can take that passive income and doesn't have to share it with thousands of people, let's say just hundreds of people, this is significant income for those people. So there would be an incentive to break away from the blocks now, an economic incentive, and I think that's very important. Currently the only thing keeping groups from splitting from the block and trying to take their own part of space and claiming more of that share is that projection, because they know even if they just try to take a small part of space, somebody is gonna instantly project without any effort. And I think there's always N+1. If somebody deploys and kills you, like I'm not gonna stop Goon Swarm with a 100-man group, but it's the ease in which these big blocks completely stomp out a smaller entity, because they don't even have to redeploy. They just take Ansiplexus. It doesn't even take them time to get to you. And this is something that I would like to see addressed. This is why projection is the main part of agenda, and that's why Komo also pointed it out as one of the main points currently keeping alliances back. And last year, I advocated for passive income with limited projection at the same time because of that reason. Now we have the passive income. Now I just want to see the nerf to projection so we can actually see a more alive nullsec and small entities thriving again.
Cool. Komo, what do you think? Any comments sort of about that, regarding that?
Comments regarding that? I mean, I agree. I think projection is a huge problem. But going back to your question about the CSM, right, and the friction that's there, because everybody, rising tide is a great thing to think about and talk about, and the idea that everybody in the CSM has this common denominator. We want to make things better, right? But we all see it in a different way, right? We all see it in a different way, and it's about connecting the dots between those things. That and I understand that you're allowed to flip tables and throw chairs. Maybe I may have been.
DCP might frown on that in the office.
Oh, they do. Oh, they do. Well,
they don't have a furniture room to do that?
As long as we're talking about the player T Evil, also known as Table, then yes, you're allowed to flip that guy.
No, okay, good. That was my entire reason for running, guys. But no, I mean, seriously, I think I think a lot of people can get behind the idea that we need new blood in N00 to progress the game forward. I mean, there was enough evidence around that with the Southeast Agreement, right? That really kind of fell apart. It didn't work out. But there's evidence that people recognized that as an area that we need to improve in this game. I also think that the fact that the Southeast Agreement existed to begin with was a problem in itself, right? The fact that all the big blocks had to agree to say, hey, we're going to make this space for the little guy and we're not going to touch it. I mean, that just illustrates the problem that they know that they can project from wherever they are in Eve to make them go away without any effort. But yeah, it's through collaboration, working with each other, finding those pain points, and make it very, very clear that that's something we need to work on.
So I have a kind of a question. Obviously, for both you, and that both you can kind of like have a go at. But like, I don't expect you guys to sort of know the answer in any way, shape, or form. It's obviously not something that has a particular answer as such. And I don't expect you guys to be experts on the topic or surrounding topics, but I just like to kind of hear what your take is on it. But like, with regards to projection, right, with regards to the fact that it's an issue, what do you think are the fundamental problems with either the game, the way that nullsec is kind of is used at the moment, that means that large groups need to project or utilize projection in the way that they do? Like what is the root cause, or the root cause for the problems that we have with projection?
Gideon, sorry, can I say it?
Yeah, go for it, Komo.
Go ahead.
Can I say it? It's antiplexes. Clearly, right? They can traverse half of Eve through superhighways, right? One of the great things that came with Equinox was the fact that these superhighways, these super antiplex highways, were going to be disrupted. Yeah, and now we've rolled back, and we've rolled that back quite a bit. Where now, yes, it's a little bit more difficult, but is it really? Right, a lot of these superhighways are going to stay in place, and I think that was a mistake.
Okay. Can I just challenge you real quick to explain what you see as a superhighway versus, for example, an inter-region chain of antiplexes, so you can get from, for example, one end of Delve to the other end of Delve without having to go 20 jumps in a big fucking scenic route. So what's the distinction there between the kind of shortening a route within your own soft space and then what you're describing as a superhighway? Where do you see the difference?
So where I see the difference is that so the superhighway is pretty clear, right? It is I'm leaving staging, I'm taking jump bridge and staging, I'm hitting a new system on grid with a gate, taking that gate, never leaving that grid, hitting another antiplex, and we can chain down through 4 or 5 regions that way. That's a problem, right? There's really no area for interruption there, right? You don't have to take a gate, go through a system to get to another jump bridge or antiplex, and then jump a little bit further, right? If we're talking about just adding a handful of jumps to disrupt those highways, then fantastic. And I think there's a big area between jumping all the way across Delve in one jump and having to gate 20 to get to the other side. Even if we're looking at adding 5 jumps in a region, that's going to significantly slow down a fleet, right, or anybody traveling. Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. It still means that you can traverse the region pretty easily. You can get to and from your staging system, your market, back to where you call your home without too many problems. But
okay,
sorry, go ahead.
So I kind of wanted to give Gideon a chance to kind of step in on this because I know it's his little soapbox. And before I jump into a couple of the Twitch chat comments on this again. So
Twitch chat has been very funny.
Twitch chat's great. Guys, we're not ignoring you, but we are trying to give these guys some time to kind of make their case. So Gideon, do you want to jump on your soapbox for a minute?
I can just quote the article that I linked earlier, because you asked what the main problem is with the superhighways that Komo pointed out. Any solution needs to deal with the speed of responses. The main grievances are all connected, rapid power projection from a centralized point. Solutions that would not rein in the speed of these responses would not help with any of the voiced concerns. Possible solutions could be re-adding jump fatigue, significant flat reactivation timer, or similar tools that would lead to a higher utilization of regular gates. This is something on the end of the whole article, the problems I point out in the article as well. Like Komo said, taking of regular gates is really important for small gang, strategic, and macro reasons. For small gang, it's very important that if a fleet of battleships takes a warp that is 70 AU and not just 1,000 kilometers from gate to Ensiplex from an Ensiplex to gate, this gives me 70 AU time to kill a battleship if I tackle one. So FCs have to make sure that even if there's just 5 people chasing them, that they make sure that the people that are in their fleet are secure from even a pesky little bee that is attacking them. This is one thing. The secondary thing is, if I, as an enemy FC from a main fleet, from a big block, know that you are going to a certain timer, I can kind of predict where your route is going through, and I can look for choke points. If I know where your choke points are, I can do stuff that we have seen a lot more in the past, like bubbling up on a certain gate so everybody lands in a pinpoint spot, do a bombing run and eliminate a whole fleet even with lower numbers. So this gives smaller groups tools in their chain to actually engage and beat a bigger group. You can see this with, for example, smart bombing rocks or smart bombing widows that were siloed on top of covered sinos or regular sinos, and you had a 200-man fleet of CFIs running into that and just getting smart bombed completely by a 30-man enemy fleet. And to actually set this up, you need a strategic pinpoint that you can point to where you know there's a choke point. So
and the time to actually implement that trap.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am really surprised that none of you are seeing one of the obvious solutions there, but I have said this many times when Phantomite was on the show, because if you guys
he's also a known Ansiblex complainer.
Yeah,
I'm not going to say complainer. He's a known Ansiblex critic. Let's put it that way.
I know there are several solutions that were proposed, right? But I can give a couple. Like jump fatigue is probably, in my opinion, it deals with the problem, but it's not something that people like.
Yes, keeping people from actually playing the game is a bad solution.
I don't like that.
I personally like way more is like you is just give people options for counterplay.
This doesn't work because there are, what options do you want to have? Deactivating a jump bridge, you can do that pretty fast by reinforcing it, right? This is some counterplay that exists currently, but it takes significant impact on smaller groups, and you cannot expect, for example, we talked about 50 jumps right now, right, in the current blocks from MJ5. You cannot expect a group of, you were part of Game Theory, Komo, I assume? You cannot expect yeah, but earlier you said you were
Chaos Theory.
Chaos Theory. How many people did you have in your alliance or coalition?
I have to go back and look. I think at our biggest we hit 6,000.
Yeah. So those 6,000 maybe get 100-man fleet at most.
Yeah.
They have limited. They have limited resources to actually engage with something. And how do you? They have less players to actually engage with something. Now you expect them to not only defend their space, but also go into the big empire and disrupt that space and use their limited time on those resources as well. Yet, like, you're overburdening the smaller groups in that case super, super hard.
No, I'm not.
It depends on like the capacity for like one person to affect like a larger group, right? Like it's very much a case of like force multiplication. If that person is better served being a Logi or a DPS in the main fleet, then quite clearly, then there's not there's a problem with actually having people around, or having people to sort of actually send to disrupt people's like a larger group's sort of movement, right? Through these various different superhighways, as we have coined them.
And here's another issue. Even if I disrupt one of the superhighways, there are so many different ways through that network to just do the same thing, maybe with 2 jumps more.
Well, I want to ask. So you talk about these superhighways, blah 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 blah. My question is what are you realistically trying to do at the end of the superhighway that they're taking to get to you? Is it just that you've tackled somebody, you're murdering them, or are you trying to take space and they're making it so you can't take space?
It depends.
What's actually happening?
I think the small gang community can kind of deal with it now that the density is lower. So I don't think that is as much of an issue as it was before, because the density of antiplexes was so high. Right now, it's more about medium-sized alliances being able to live in a space and not immediately get turbo stomped by people that are 50 jumps away, even that are not even committing, that are just forming a fleet in their staging and moving there, without any deployment, without any time to get there, without any mass restrictions like Wormholes would have.
Right, but like, what are they? Are they trying to take space and they're just not able to take any space?
People taking space, keeping space, and having an expectation of if somebody comes here, he at least has to put in effort. Because it feels bad if you're building something, you deploy resources, and somebody just turbo stomps you even without putting in any effort. This is just lopsided in one way, and it doesn't feel good for the people that are getting turbo stomped. And just to put it into perspective, let's say we take one of the big blocks, it doesn't matter which one it is. They form a 200-man TFI fleet. How many people could reasonably engage a 200-man TFI fleet within the current meta? Like, you can name the groups. It's probably a handful of groups that potentially could ever engage this fleet. And now, through NCplexes, that 200-man fleet is not just in the home region or within 20-25 jumps. That fleet is everywhere. And if you open the soft.space map, it currently is basically two blocks, and they're directly connecting each other. The couple of buffer systems that currently exist are semi-aligned with one of the 2 groups. So if you just open the soft.space map, you can do that on stream if you want. That would be something nice to see.
Yeah, hang on.
And just look at the coalition influence map, and there's just nothing anymore. It's all the 2 blocks, the NCplexes, and nothing in between.
Okay, so while Mac pulls that up, I do want to come back to Twitch chat real quick, because I said I would. Give a bit of a shout out to Darkshines and Alcoholic Satan, both current CSMs running. I believe you're both running for re-election this year.
I'm surprised. I thought Darkshines was like, fuck this shit.
I did wonder,
Shines is not on the list, by the looks.
Yeah, Shines isn't. Shines
Okay.
isn't.
So Shines is stepping down, but Alcoholic Satan running for another term. Hi guys, always great to have current CSM in the Twitch chat.
Yeah.
So Alcoholic Satan has a couple of points on balancing mechanics that he thinks might be. Did I just say Alcoholic Shines? Jesus. Anyway, moving on.
Just thinking about alcohol is making him drunk.
Yeah,
I'm registering that name now.
But yeah, we've just merged the 2 of them into this one super CSM. So yeah, a couple of ideas about how to potentially adapt Ansiblexes without necessarily needing to change huge amounts in terms of the deployment styles. So first up is removing ACLs from Ansiblexes. So you can only use an Ansiblex if it is run by your own alliance. That would be one option. The other one, which I'm a big fan of, and I've been a big fan of ever since Ansiblexes came in, is the idea that we go with gate mechanics. These Ansiblexes are supposed to be gates, stargates, when they're deployed. So make it so that you can't jump through the gate when you're scrammed.
Okay. Here's the thing.
You can jump through a gate when scrammed.
I will read the same paragraph again. just one sentence from the post that I made. Any solution needs to deal with the speed of responses. You're not slowing down the speed of responses. You still have the same issue of the 200 TFIs projecting all over the space if it's just a regular gate.
And
the speed of the response is the key issue.
This is where I wanted to bring up a question from Froggy Storm, who did, in fact, bring this up as a challenge question that he wanted to see asked. What would you find the right balance, roughly the right balance, to be in terms of the distance to travel and the amount of time it should take you to travel them with these antiplexers, or just generally in terms of gate travel? What's the rough distance to time ratio that you would want to see from both of you?
It should not be an everyday task that you can punch battlecruiser or battleship fleets all across the galaxy in no time without any logistics co-effort.
That doesn't give a rough idea of distance to time. Like, how long should it take you to traverse 3 regions, roughly?
Let's take a battleship that should probably take you an hour at least for 2 to 3 regions. Just traveling. And there's a reason for this as well, because warp speed used to matter a lot more in doctrines. I used to FC Retributions and Deacons because they were warping faster than a battlecruiser fleet. This way I could escape the local response fleets if they formed something that is outshipping me. At this point in time, even if I fly with Spectre fleet, if I fly for any of the other entity, or I just fly small gang, you're not outrunning a battlecruiser fleet with a frigate fleet these days. Because they just take the Ansiplex in a pipe to be in front of you. If you go the pipe the other way, they jump in front of you again. So there's no chasing, there is no downside to using a ship that has a slower warp speed. If you would take 1 hour, for example, for 3 regions with a battleship, right now, there would be an incentive to actually downship and take smaller doctrines more again. So you would see more Harpy fleets, Flycatcher fleets, and the smaller stuff, and they would have, again, more of a strategic impact. And if you look at the current conflicts, if they ever escalate or if there's something brewing, you're not seeing like massive Harpy fleets on the regular. This is at this point an odd occasion. It used to be much more Jackdaws, Harpies, Flycatchers in the past, and these ship classes would revitalize again as soon as projection is limited, because either they have a smaller mass, so you can go through a wormhole to limit your time to actually get to a certain timer, but then you have less fighting power because it's further away. Or you actually have the faster warping speed, so you can make it there in time just because you're warping faster as well. So the meta would look, in my opinion, a lot more healthy just having these delays.
Okay. And so coming to you, Komo, as well, what would you say should be the kind of rough distance to time traveled? What do you think is like kind of the sweet spot for that? How long should it take you to travel, say, 3 regions?
Well, that's not really a fair question, because you have the regional groups that have strategic importance around each other. Look at Aquarius and Delve. Look at Fade and Pureblind, Tribute and Veil. Right, those groups should be easier to traverse. But when you start targeting things like how long should it take for you to move from 1DQ or MJ to Curse? Right? How long should that take? Well, it should take a couple hours and some real real thought, right? In how we're doing that. If we're talking about battleships and battlecruisers, right? Of course, if you're running retributions, or if you have a fleet of jackdaws, those should be able to traverse much faster. But those hard block doctrines shouldn't be able to catch word of a timer 30 minutes before it happens and take that bat phone, right? And come in and really just overwhelm the grid. Yeah, you can take 100 jackdaws. It's going to make a huge impact in most of the medium-sized fights that are out there, but it's not going to control the fight. Yeah, it's still going to be the block battleships sitting, or the form of the battleship sitting on that grid, on that objective. Right? They can participate, but they don't have a real influence on that outcome.
Cool. I wanted to make a quick point with regards to the conversation, specifically with regards to the conversation of treating jump bridges as gates, right? because a lot of the situation, and it was mentioned, much earlier in the conversation that, like, one aspect of the superhighway kind of problem is the fact that most superhighways, used as superhighways in this game, generally tend to be on grid with the gate that they kind of connect with the next highway piece, right? If we're going to be, if CCP really wants to actually look at the jump bridges as actual gates in the same way that the NPC gates exist in the game, is there any area, or is there any system at all in the entirety of the game that has 2 gates on the same grid?
Yes.
I don't. Is there?
Yes.
How many systems are those?
A handful.
It's
but
not
many.
uncommon, but it's not like
they do exist.
Ultra common.
Yeah, because I don't recall any. But if you say that there are a few, then that's fair enough.
Yes, there are a few.
The way that I would see it,
there's at least one in Tribute.
Because the way I kind of see it is if jump bridges were not able to be placed on the same grid as gates, then that would at least in some way impart some degree
when it comes to
additional travel time.
No, when it comes to travel time, that is insignificant.
It's a little bit significant.
The saving of jumps is the majority there. And on top of that, you have the small warps as well. But the long warps are a vulnerability of a big fleet moving.
Yeah,
that is the main part of having to have the long warps. But the time savings is in just the cutting short of actually having to chain a lot of normal gates consecutively, because you just cut across space. In the post, that is the old jump bridge network. But as I was doing the draft, I was reaching out, and somebody else was actually trying to make a draft. If you know Amelia Dust Space Group, they were deploying against Test in Outer Passage at that point in time, and they had the issue that Horde came to every time they did something in Outer Passage against Test. And one of their characters I was reaching out to actually did a similar draft, and we just merged the draft as well. And he had examples of this, right? MJ5 to W4E, that's his fourth stager to current war frontline versus the Imperium. NC Plexus 16 jumps, normal route 42 jumps across 5 regions. So this is cutting it by to a third. Horde's data to Geminate, MJ5 to Geminate, NC Plexus 4 jumps. The normal route would be 18 jumps. So this is cutting it down by a significant degree again. And there are even more egregious examples of this. At that point, XIX actually used to be a separate entity to some degree. Now it is not anymore. MJ5 to JTech-Z, which was the XIX stager, was 32 jumps through normal gates, 14 jumps through NC Plexus. So just moving the NC Plexus, so you actually have to warp to them in the system, is alleviating some of the problem. But this doesn't address 2 issues. First, I cannot shadow your fleet. So a small gang chasing you, you just take an NC-Plex and I cannot follow you because you're so much faster even if you fly battleships. So I cannot, even small gangs or medium-sized alliances trying to pick off a couple of battleships to actually inflict some damage of you even if they lose a timer. All that sort of gameplay is not existent with NC-Plexus. And the second issue is just the cutting off of the number of jumps is already so high that the projection is already so fast that it doesn't matter. So
okay,
I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
okay, that's cool.
So take a little bit of a tangent, the idea of moving Ansiblexes off of the gate grid. I don't think it's going to create a solution to the problem that we have with the blocks leaning over these independent states, right? What's really neat about it, though, is it does open up an area of content, right? Or at least makes people think a little bit more. Let's de-scan that gate before I warp to it if there's neutrals in system. It opens up a little bit more player-on-player interaction when you do that. So I'm completely for the idea of moving Ansiblexes off of gate grids. I think it's good for the game, but not for this application. Right. And to answer your question, XFTAC TQL has 2 gates on the same grid.
Okay.
So if you want to look at that system, but yeah,
Even
moving
has gates on the same.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't like
It's quite common.
MX or whatever not in 5B2K or 8WA or like
yeah,
it would be 8WA and MTAC O. I take that back.
Yeah, there's not a ton of them. There's not a ton of them, but it's nice because it kind of mixes up the geography of the systems, right? When you see that.
Yeah. Okay.
And I read the comment on the stream a little bit differently on the turning Ansiblexes into gates. I took that as anybody can take that gate. I think that would solve a lot of problems that we're running into right now. Small game can still chase larger groups and continue to harass them. You can put up the bubble camps on those gates and really interrupt the movement of fleets and really any logistics in a large area. Right now, it's a void. Right, somebody warps to an Ansiblex, they go through it. They're now playing in a different instance. As you,
I would be willing to entertain that idea because I saw that earlier and I was like, well, that would be funny. I would be willing to entertain the idea of opening up the gate to anybody could use it as a trade-off for, well, you can have as many gates as you want, but anybody can use them. Only if you're not blue to the gate or have the normal access, then you have to pay double the price. Enjoy DC and innate gates then.
I would also say that like you might have to disconnect the usage of gates to the fueling of gates as well, because like then you could potentially end up having a hostile use your gates to like basically drain your fuel.
Yeah, you would have to just remove the ozone requirement.
Yeah.
See,
and just have a cost.
That or require that ships have ozone in them in order to be able to take a jump gate.
That's interesting.
These are like fun.
These
are like fun little conversations you can have around Antiplex in general, because it's kind of frustrating tackling somebody he jumps, right? But it doesn't address the issue of
well, if everybody uses gates, then projection doesn't matter.
It does. That's what I pointed out earlier. How many groups can face 200 TFIs or even 200 CFIs, Cyclone Fleet issues?
Okay.
How many groups in the game can do this? Yeah, name them.
I've defeated 2. I've been in a fleet where we had 35 Ishtars and beat 2 battleship fleets at the same time. So it is definitely possible.
And I've seen Rooks and Kings defeat a whole bunch of ships.
It just requires a lot of effort and a lot of
it requires some precision.
Skill.
It requires opportunity.
I remember the times when we were deleting entire battleship fleets on jump bridges. You know how we did that?
Bubbles and bombers.
A single bubble and a lot of bombers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there are
what you
options.
couldn't do back then when you were bubbled?
Jump through the Ansiplex or
jump through Titans as well.
All right. Exactly. I got a meeting to go to, and then the big announcement later. You guys have fun.
Yep. See ya.
Yes.
there are a lot of issues.
The big announcement. Yeah. To interject real quick, I have seen a couple comments in Twitch chat about it. I know we've got a lot of people watching today. We will have the State of the Goonian, but from Asher later on. That's in about 30 minutes. It will be streamed right here on Imperium News Twitch. So if you're sticking around for the big announcement, it is coming. Don't you worry.
Yeah, it will be straight after this show as well, like literally right after. Like we will be handing it off to Brisk. Like in a very smooth kind of way. Anyway, that will be in about
30 minutes.
About 20 minutes.
25 or so, yeah. So yeah, we just wanted to get that out there to make sure that people who are watching know that we've got it coming for them. So anyway, back to more comments about how Ansiblexes for bigger groups should be allowed to, should be fucking with smaller groups.
Here's the thing, right? When I made that post, I was not reaching out to just small gang people, right? You see Noreos in that post, I wouldn't call Fraternity a small gang alliance. I was talking to Gobbins at the same time. He didn't have time at that time, and I was interacting with him, but he was sympathetic to the idea to make such a list, but he didn't come back to me in time before. So that's why he's not co-signed. Maybe he wouldn't co-sign it. I don't know. I cannot guarantee for this. But there are so many bigger entities in this. There's Horde, there's Fraternity, there's, at that time, Big App, Like these are not small entities, and FCs from all these groups. At that time, Volta was an entity. Like we from Blob and Volta as co-signed on this as well. All of them see the problem there, and I can point to Init as well. Dark Shines has an idea about NCplexes, which is his idea was he wants to X all access lists, and you're only allowed to deploy NCplexes in a certain jump range from your capital system, the soft capital system.
And that would work.
And that would give you local entities, and you cannot project over other entities. I like the impact of that, but it has some downsides that, like, I would take that change and I would completely accept it. The problem I see with that change is that if you're in a coalition and you're the smaller member, you are kind of forced to merge now into the bigger group. Because you need the access of the NCplexes. You're not staying.
Well, actually,
that's already kind of true.
To some degree, like if you maximize the amount of home systems, then you maximize the amount of jump bridges that could potentially be,
but they are locked. Yeah, there are no access lists anymore, so you cannot take them.
Well, I guess that's true. Yeah, good point. All right.
I think that's an interesting idea.
There are concepts, but here's the thing that I want the watchers of this to realize. This is not an entity that I, as the small gang PvPer, even though I'm not really in many instances, just push for this. This is something that across FCs in all matters of space, they all realize that the speed of projection is an issue because it has these negative effects on gameplay, and it limits the strategic depth of strategic engagements, small gang engagements, mid-sized engagements. All of these engagements are significantly.
It also limits the
less interesting.
It limits the options, the possibilities, the possible different types of interactions that you can have as a small group against a large group, as a medium group against medium groups, and
large against large. Yeah. Like all the interactions are just limited because the time that you have to prepare for somebody coming to your space, to a time and moving there is so limited, and it's so hard to shadow a fleet, right? Even if I prepare dictators, let's say in MJ5, and I know a fleet is moving out there, if I don't catch them until they get to their first NCplex, they're gone. Because I cannot follow them through the NCplexes. So even in that instance, like you cannot even shadow a fleet these days. And these are kind of like cumulative issues with NCplexes from different angles. You cannot shadow a fleet. The warps are so short that even if you tackle somebody that was straggling, you are not able to get him in time because the warps are so short that the main fleet can just warp back.
And typically because they're on grid, they know straight away if there's a bubble.
And somebody's tackled, Yeah.
There's no error. There's no margin of error there.
Yeah,
right? Exactly. It's very easy. Is there a bubble? Is there not? Okay, let's go.
And you'll be aligned anyway, so it'll be a case of like, if there's not a bubble, just click warp and you're already there. Like there's no ability to intercept or requirement to communicate between each other to know whether something's, whether there's a bubble up or not. Right.
So speaking of.
Go ahead. I was speaking. You take it.
I was really curious about your position on Zarzak, right? Like that was another major element in the game that created that force projection, right? And Zarzak was fun. I loved it. It gave me easy access to Veil and Curse, but I also saw what happened to all of those independent alliances and coalitions around Scalding Pass and Detroit and Wicked Creek. They just got demolished, right? They became the content of all of Eve.
Yeah, any small group that was basically around those exit points, they couldn't. They basically knew that if there was any content, any sort of like small group fight that they had around there, that anybody around, like basically any large group in the game could get to that very quickly with overwhelming force.
It's even worse because the regions that got connected were particularly the regions people flee to if they didn't want to engage with the big block meta. So you connected people in low sec with nullsec, NPC nullsec. So exactly the regions where smaller mid-sized entities still could hold their own because the game mechanics themselves with station docking and stuff like this allowed them to always retreat if somebody rolls them over. And now you connected those regions and made them the super highway of all of Eve. So you directly connected the people that don't want to participate with the big block meta. Like, I don't know what CCP was smoking when they made that decision. Like,
well, I'd love to know if and I'm sure we probably won't know this for 5 years or whenever.
Yeah, until the
NDA actually drops. But whether CCP ever actually told or got in touch with the CSM about those changes and about where those particular systems were going to be connecting.
I remember I was writing with the CSMs at the time when the first patch notes came out, and everybody who read the patch notes, be it Spectre Fleet or it doesn't matter in which community I was in, was concerned that there's no time delay in this, and this is just going to be NCplexes on steroids because you cannot even reinforce them. Yeah. And I was writing to CSM members at the time, like, is there a time delay? If there's no time delay, can you intervene and try to get a feedback there? And yeah, it came to what it is, right? Even before it was out, people quickly pointed out the problems with it, because we have seen the impacts of antiplexes on metas before, and Zazek was the same thing, just on steroids.
Just much bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time on antiplexes. But you've both talked about having been part of smaller communities in the past. And I kind of want to turn to patches that are semi-recent but not recent, and talk to you about the faction warfare changes that we saw earlier in the year and towards later last year. Where do you think those changes have kind of come to? Do you think those changes have borne fruit over a longer period, or were they just kind of a shake-up and now everything's settled back in? Is there more work to do in the faction warfare area as well?
We have seen faction warfare after the big upgrade and the big overhaul of it. There was a lot of activity in those systems. We had a second re-emergence of this when the pirate incursions came out, and that content has tapered off, and it's now for many, it's often farmed content, and then you have a little bit of engagement between players at the moment, and it's like the battlefields and all these sites are no longer as run, they're no longer as contested, and you don't see the regular fights anymore. And I think this is something that is inherent just by faction warfare being in low sec, having dockable stations, citadels that are deployed close by, or even just NPC stations that are not necessarily in faction warfare, but that are adjacent to it. It's very hard to stake a claim as your own in low sec. Like, you cannot make a system your own, because somebody can always go into your system, dock in the NPC stations, or have something that is in range of your station, and you can never mitigate that. So that's why I think these areas will always have, if new content comes out, it will go up in activity and it will go down eventually, because what keeps people engaged in the game is having a stake in a local area and claiming it as your own. And if you just cannot claim it as your own, people will drift away from that, and they will go to spaces that they can call their home and that they can shape up.
Well, that's the dream of New Eden, right? You jump in this game and you want to make a name for yourself. You want to carve off a piece of it, and you don't necessarily get that in faction warfare. But I think the patches were positive, right? You did see a lot of people engage in it. Not everybody hung out, but you go into faction warfare space, it's not dead space. People use it. People engage, and you see a lot of player on player interaction out there, right? So I would say it's successful. It pulled people back into the game. A lot of people enjoy it. I know quite a few people that bounce back between the faction warfare space and then back to OO, just chasing the content, finding something to do. And I mean, when you boil it down, there's always something to do over in the faction warfare. Either you're trying to harass somebody, but there's going to be people in space.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm trying to come back to one of our more fun and right, yes.
What constitutes a good Bloody Mary?
Oh God, Mac is going to insist on this, so go on. Yeah, fine. Why not?
Well, no. I mean, You can take that question if you want to. Totally up to you guys. Like,
I think the drinks you had before that determines how good a Bloody Mary is.
Ooh, okay.
Interesting.
See,
I think Dirk might sort of
always
contend.
starts on a Bloody Mary, so
That's a bit of a problem with it.
Not always.
The majority of times, for sure.
But yes, it is one of my go-to drinks. No, I was actually going to lean towards the question of cider or hard cider. Now,
yes.
I think this could be interesting given the panel that we've got left at this point on the show. But yeah, cider or hard cider?
I do enjoy cider. So.
Well, the question is, what do you call the alcoholic
apple juice
fruit-based beer? Cider or hard cider?
Yeah, cider.
I had to say hard cider. I've never heard it otherwise, but that's because I'm a dumb American.
There's another issue. I'm just not a native speaker, right? So.
See, we have an issue with the Americans on this show calling it hard cider because the thing about it is that cider has alcohol in it, and if it doesn't have alcohol in it, it's just apple juice.
Yeah.
Well, I also call
for the Americans.
Chips, so.
It's a cultural divide at this point in time. Yeah, but it has always been like a comical kind of talking point on this show as to, why the fuck is it hard cider? Why is it just regular? Why isn't it just
where did you get this idea of a hard cider from?
If a British person wants to claim that's weird, they should explain to me what the definition of a donut is. Because if you look what kind of things in the British kitchen are called donut, I have no idea what the definition of a fucking donut is.
I'd have to look into that because,
if he ever comes back, then just bring that up and try. Let him try to explain it.
We might have to look into that because, as far as I know, a donut is very much a singular thing, singular American thing. It's like, I don't know I don't know what other random things you would technically call a donut that isn't actually a sweet kind of pastry that you eat. Like,
I am looking at the clock though, and wondering, Komo, Gideon, is there anything you guys want to talk about in the last 10 minutes we have?
Oh yes,
that isn't Ansiblexus.
That isn't Ansiblexus.
That we haven't talked about yet.
Okay, I was raiding a lot against Protection and Nullsec Empires. I actually want to see it revitalized again, because currently if you roam into Nullsec, what you usually see is either big mining fleets or it's an Ishtar spinning. You rarely see a Marauder, maybe he's running a DED, or it's a Black Ops directly jumping to a DED site and running it with a Marshal or something like this. I would like to see more active income opportunities within Nullsec, because this would also allow roaming content, and if there is a significant income source in Nullsec that you can actively pursue, it revitalizes the game. It gives you something to hunt, similar to Skyhooks, at any moment in time in EVE. And Nullsec is the most traversable space for an opponent. That means you have the most systems you can check, the most interactions with other people, and it's just the place where it's the most likely that you interact with another person if you go into it. And if we had more people actually living in Nullsec, actively participating in Nullsec, I think it would benefit everybody within the game, because there are just more interactions, and more interactions in the end means we have more fun. Or not fun if you're on the receiving end of a gun, but at least the moments you are the one shooting the gun, you will be more happy about that.
So, I think you read my post, but well, yeah, no, I absolutely. We need to elevate. We need to give a financial benefit back to Nullsec. Right now, it's just it's a tax to alliances. If you're looking for money, great. You can sit there and spin Ishtars. You can grind out some mediocre belts with your mining fleet, but it kind of stops there, right? Everything's been pushed into low sec. bring some of that out to nullsec. Give us a reason to undock those marauders and warp them into sites. You know, it would be really neat to see something like what are the ESS key sites? The what are they called? Help me out, guys. You know what I'm talking about?
SEC
Okay, good.
sites.
I'm not the only one.
SEC sites and nullsec, you mean?
Yeah, the SEC sites.
Yeah.
Bring something like SEC sites into nullsec, right? Where you have to go into those with marauders and play that game. Create some more keys. Now you have more people going after reserve bakes and on the opposite side of you. On top of that, not saying that's the solution to everything, but bring that type of content back out to nullsec. Give people more engaging opportunities. It's good for the PvEers, it's good for the PvPers, and it grows nullsec all the way around. Rising tide.
I just had an interview, for example, with EVE Rookies, and I brought this up there as well. If you want to min-max your income and you are not like a massive multi-boxer, what are currently the ways you make the most money? Either you have a group you can participate in the Podgman content with, you go into C5, C6 wormhole, you red in a wormhole, or you go into high-sec incursions, or you do Abyssal PvE in a high-sec system. All of these mechanics are systems that less interact with, that are harder to interact with. A wormholer can crit his in-holes, and as soon as a signature spawns, he can warp out. Or if he's tackled, he cannot warp out, but it's much harder to roll. You actively have to roll into him, so you actually already have to put an effort to actually get to a wormholer. So they're more insulated if they're retting or they are actively out. High-seckers, they have Concord protection. We don't have to talk about that. So Abyssal PvE, they are also in high-sec, so the same thing applies. C5 mission running is something that is very niche, but it also nets the most income for a single account player. These are isolated pockets you have to scan down, and you can just descan your outside or have eyes on the outside if somebody warps on top of your acceleration gate. You just warp your ship out that you have inside. So all of these active highest income sources are min-maxing players out of the game or into pockets that are harder to interact with. And why not bring these players into the zone where it's the easiest to interact with them?
Some may say that the Podgman is one of those pockets that are, particularly hard to interact with.
They're the easiest to interact with. I can take a filament from anywhere in space, even if I have to divide my fleet into 25 people or 15 people or whatever your filament size is. I can split up my fleet. It's at maximum 10 jumps to get to you. I can combine my fleet again and I can engage you again. And I can do it from anywhere in space.
Okay, good. That's definitely good to have a counter for that.
The proof is in the pudding, right?
Yeah.
Podgman is one of the highest income earners. I think it's too high in certain degrees, but it's also on the destruction graph. It's one of the systems with the most destruction. So it kind of proves what my point is. Bring active content and active PvE content into areas of space where people are more likely to engage with each other. And I think this would be healthier for the game as a whole. And that's why higher nullsec income would not just benefit nullsec, it would benefit everybody who roams into nullsec, which is, except very small communities, at some point everybody has to interact with nullsec or wants to interact with nullsec because it is the easiest space to traverse.
Okay, cool. Right, we're getting close to time at this particular point in time. I would like to say thank you very much to Gideon, to Komo, and to
Itaer, who was here earlier.
He was here earlier, yes. We will have something similar like this next week as well. I'd like to give a couple of moments. Chaotic. Yeah, it will be. We've got like 5.
Next week, confirmed names for next week are Ariel is going to be around, Ariel Rin. So talking about third-party developers, we're going to have Dujek One Eye from Brave Collective, who is running for his second attempt at getting on the CSM. Did we?
We have Phantomite.
We've got Phantomite, everyone's favorite Answer Blex enjoyer.
We've got Dutch Gunner as well. Who's going to be there?
Yeah, so yeah, it's going to be a cool
and
party
Zintage
next weekend,
and Zintage as well.
I haven't seen if Zintage is confirmed.
Very own Zintage.
But, yeah, Zintage Naka running for his very first attempt at the CSM. So yeah, we will have a party next week.
Definitely.
Going to be interesting.
Very quickly, Komo, If anybody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way of doing so?
Right now, guys, I'm on the Eve Discord. I mentioned it earlier today on the CCP interview. Just poke me. It's Komo Sunder. I'm open to everybody. If something you are really passionate about this game, or you just don't agree with me, that's fine. I want to hear it. Like I said, I have my perspective on this game. I really want to know what everybody else is too.
Nice. Gideon, best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No, that's cool. If anybody wanted to reach out, that
was not the question.
If anybody wanted to reach out and talk to you about like gameplay stuff, or pick your brain about any particular kind of things, maybe antiplexes, like how would they best? What would be the best way of doing so?
Just write me an Eve mail. You can go on Discord. I'm in the Spectre Fleet channel, which is publicly accessible. You will see me in the FC list. You can write a message there. If you don't have my Discord, if you do not have my Discord name already, so just reach out.
Oh my god!
And I will answer you.
That was an unironic use Eve mails, guys. That is something I haven't seen in a number of years. But fair play to you, buddy.
He's also on the Eve Discord. If
people who do not want to use Discord, right? And if somebody plays Eve, I can assume he at least has an Eve account. So
do be sure to include your favorite ice cream flavor if you are going to be reaching out to Gideon via Eve mail.
Use Discord.
Nice, very nice. Okay, so what we have going is Brisk is going to be very, 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 very shortly taking over the channel. We will be dropping this stream, and then Brisk will be starting up his stream like almost immediately. So, and that'll be for the State of the Union.
State of the Union.
Yeah.
And after that, I hear there's more interviews on the CCP Twitch channel.
Yes, there'll be more interviews on the CCP Twitch channel. And then Sunday, there will be a meta show with Dave. And then, more things over the rest of the week with us coming back with some more CSM interviews and conversations. So with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for chilling with us and enjoying the conversation. And we'll see you guys next week. But stay here for State of the Union.
Thank you guys. This is great.
See you guys.